Today, we're joined by Cory Caprista, entrepreneur, leadership, and communications coach, and the host of Super Good, a podcast dedicated to exploring what it really takes to be great and what can go wrong along the way. Cory's mission is simple: to build a world of love, laughter, and fulfillment by helping leaders and creators optimize the whole human experience. Cory, super excited and grateful to have you on the show.
Likewise, brother. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Uh, so let's talk about basketball and why we haven't played for so long now.
Oh my God, dude. It's funny. I turned 41 this year, and one of the sad things in my life is the amount of friends who want to just jump on the court and play. One, not a lot of friends necessarily from the beginning played basketball at like a similar enough level where we could play pickup. But also the last couple places I've lived have not had easy pickup games. First COVID, really, they used to remember when they pulled the rims off the backboards and they just like would not let people play pickup
Oh my
basketball
God.
during
Yeah,
COVID.
that's insane. I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
insane. And then I moved to Las Vegas, and I was at the Lifetime Fitness here for a while, and they have a beautiful full indoor court, and I thought I had reached heaven. The last time I had been able to play pickup basketball games in a full court like that was in college at Santa Clara. They had like, I think there was like three or four like in a row, and I could go and I could warm up and shoot free throws and warm up, and then there would be a pickup game going. I could jump in, and that was like basketball heaven for me. And I played every day, and I got, for me at least, from my skill level compared to how I was in high school or even what I am now, that was like I got so good because I got to play all the time. So I moved to Vegas, joined this gym, and I thought, oh my God, I'm back. I'm back in heaven. Never, ever saw adults playing pickup there once in my entire time of being at that gym. And it was so sad. That's a big reason I had like spent all this extra money. I mean, Vegas is known for its very low cost gyms, and that one is quite expensive. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to pay for it because I'm going to be able to pick up basketball. Nope. And so it hurt my heart too much. Had to leave, had to stop being a member there. And so now what I'm doing, other than when we get to hang out and play pickup basketball, which is still on our bucket list of friendship, is I've started learning paddle or padel, however you call it, because that's the only sport I've found that people around and from like my age to little lower and above, that people are like getting together to play something like pickup basketball. And so I'm really, even though I'm not as good at paddle or padel, because I never played tennis growing up, no racket sports, I'm somewhat athletic, so I'm picking it up. But that's my commitment, is to learn that sport so I can have something like basketball to play into my 60s, you know? So it's actually like, but when I have something like pickup basketball or padel, my quality of life is way different than when I'm not playing any sport. It's like a night and day thing. Maybe you experience that as well.
Yeah, totally, dude. When I'm playing sports, I'm just in such a good flow and rhythm, and just getting your heart rate up that high. Nothing gets my heart rate up like I don't run as hard anywhere else besides on a basketball court or on like a
Same.
padel court or just playing a sport, right? It's such a great way to exercise.
It's such a slog to do your cardio without it
Yeah.
being a sport. If you're
Yep.
only doing, it is such a slog. But when I'm on the court, it's just, you just sweat so much and you're panting and you're like, okay, I want to do more. I want to do more. And so, and also just that bit of that competitive piece has to come out. Over COVID, I actually started competitive gaming again. I used to be a competitive gamer in high school, back in the day, before it was as big as it is now. And I was good at one game. It was Rainbow Six Roguespear. It was not a huge game. It was a very small community, but I was near the top of that community, at least in the US. And that competitive outlet felt so good. And during COVID, we couldn't play any sports, couldn't play pickup basketball. So I started playing this game called Valorant for a few years. Then I had to stop because I get so like competitive and addicted to video games. I have to like stop doing it. But my body was like freaking out because I didn't have that competitive outlet. So the
Yeah.
combination of like the workout plus the competitiveness, I just really need that in my life.
Yep. Me too, man. You ever play? I'm sure. Well, maybe you haven't. Playing the virtual reality like sports games. Like I
No,
put on
like
the
in a headset.
Oculus. Yeah, I put on the Oculus or Apple's one, whatever that one's called. But basically, like boxing or even basketball, it's insane how real it feels, and also it's a great workout. It's like a little tedious to have this thing on your head, but it was pretty cool to me to just have that experience. Have you ever done that or no with the virtual
No,
reality?
I've never done that. I look
Yeah.
forward to like whatever version of that there is when we're 80, that
Yeah.
like some sort of like electrostimulus plus VR allows us to do
Yeah.
something very fitness oriented, even when our bodies are ancient. I'm praying we figure that out because I would like to be playing sports even into my ancient late years if possible.
Yeah, man. Me too. Well, we'll get some padel on too. So we got to get, maybe we'll schedule a basketball competitive appointment and also padel when we're together. Maybe on this
Don't threat.
podcast. It'll hold us accountable and everybody will
Let's
know.
do it. Let's do it. Yeah, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm in. That's all I
Yeah.
want to do. Hang out with my friends, play sports. Life.
Nice. Were you ever able to dunk?
No, I can dunk like a smaller ball. Like if anything I can palm, I can dunk, but
Yeah.
I just can't palm a basketball. And my
Yeah.
vertical and my size is of the combination where I can just barely get packed by the rim if I
Yeah.
try to dunk. I can kind of do that dunk where you like get right to the rim and then you have to kind of like throw it in. I can do that with a basketball, but if you give me a smaller ball, I was able to dunk with those, but not a real dunk, not a satisfying real dunk. But you ever played
Yeah.
I used to play a ton of trampoline everything. Like I was like a this is so embarrassing, but and when I worked in tech in San Francisco like a decade ago, played a lot of trampoline dodgeball, and I was like a four-time champion at this trampoline dodgeball place. But I did trampolines all growing up, and there used to be like trampoline basketball courts. There probably still are for people. So you used to be able to like
Yeah.
jump on a trampoline and dunk a ball, and that was, or you could rent those courts where you could lower the rims and dunk, and
Yep.
or even Nerf basketball dunk on those. So, but no real full court 10-foot hoop dunking.
That's great though. That's fun. The trampoline stuff is still
Yeah,
legit.
yeah.
Sweet, man. Well, let's talk about your podcast. That's what sparked me when I saw you were launched the podcast, some of the episodes you've done with some mutual friends we know. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This like Cory should have a podcast. You're such a outspoken, energetic, awesome, fun person with putting out good vibes and so great with people. So I'm happy you put it out. But tell us, what was the catalyst for doing it, and tell us a little bit what it's about.
The catalyst for doing it, I've been thinking about putting content out into the world for quite a while. I worked like when I graduated college, I worked in tech for 10 years, kind of sales and product in tech, and then quit my job, eat, pray, love. What am I supposed to be in this world? You know, like trying to figure myself out. And I came back as a coach, butterfly from that caterpillar, and then into the cocoon. I came back as a coaching butterfly, and I've done that for about a decade. The vast, almost all of that work for 10 years was private, right? So it's one-on-one or with teams, business to business selling, working with corporations. And so none of that work, none of those breakthrough moments with people, none of these great things, almost none of that actually went out into the world. And I got to a point where I'd done it so much that I really loved going deep with individuals, and I was like, well, there is this thing called the internet that's been around for a long time. And you get this thing called scale when you put yourself out through the internet. And it's so dumb and hilarious that I haven't done it. And so for the last few years, I even did a previous version of the Super Good podcast. I did a couple episodes with our mutual friends, Johan and Rachel. They're fine. They were good. It was like a first attempt, but it didn't really stick. And then in the last few years, I was like, hey, I want to maybe put my work out in the world and reach more people. It's great to go deep, but it's also nice to go broad. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of these kinds of conversations that I think people could benefit from because I benefit from them. There's like something I read, a piece of research that's like self-help books and self-help content doesn't work, unless, and the unless is unless you consume it regularly. It actually does work if you are have a consistency of reading or listening or consuming content that expands your mind and inspires you, then you actually do get a benefit from it. And so I tend to listen to a ton of podcasts, read books, etc. And so I'm getting all this value and I'm not giving, there's not like that exchange of giving it back out wasn't there. And I was like, I think it's my turn to step up and
Mhm.
put something out and find if I can reach anyone and give them value. And then what was funny, and maybe some people listening will have a can relate to this, the concept of what I wanted to do and the actual steps to do it weren't that hard. how to actually set up recording a podcast. And in 2025, it's like way easier than it's ever been. And yet I wasn't doing it. It kept being on my to-do list, and it kept getting kicked down the road, kicked down the road, kicked down the road. So eventually I was like, well, there's something else going on here. There's something stopping me from moving forward that's not just
Mm,
the not knowing how to do it, or it being hard or complicated, or me being busy. There's like something else. And usually if that's the case, there's something emotionally, and whether it's in my subconscious or semi-conscious, there's some emotional resistance, belief resistance, fear that's creating that resistance and that separation between me and my goal. And so actually a friend had pitched me on going to this course called Atlas. It's like a part of like Landmark or MITT. If some people listening might know those courses, it all comes from like LifeSpring and EST back in the 60s. And then all these branches went off. And I had done Landmark way back in the day, and it really worked for me. I don't always recommend it. It can be a bit culty, but it really did work for me. A bunch of friends were going through Atlas, and they're like, you should go. And I was like, well, I have a very clear reason to go through it, and that's to make progress on my podcast and actually put my work out there and figure out why I'm not, and then break through that. So I went through the course, and lo and behold, it was a very specific blocker to putting the podcast out. And it was that I was really afraid of looking bad or being judged. And so I was really
mm.
committed to looking good. And that
Yeah.
comes from my childhood and my family being a little bit different, and people making comments and feeling like I had to defend my family. And so one way to not have to defend my family was to have people not see my family, and thus,
Mm,
as an extension, see myself. So sort of by not putting myself out there, my authentic self out there, then I won't put myself out to be judged. So pretty simple concept, but it came from a very like deep emotional root. And so once I saw what it was, I was able to shrink the intensity of that or the resistance down into something manageable that I could look at and be like, oh, that's what I'm afraid of. That's the resistance. And then put it to the side and then take an action anyway. And so right after that insight, I started being able to record and put the podcast out. And the reason, the concept of the podcast also comes from that same kind of core wound. My sister had a rare childhood disease. So did my little brother later, but my sister was the first one, and I was only about 3 years old. And she was being studied by all these specialists, like all these really smart doctors at Stanford. Um, they were all so interested in her. And at 3 years old, I wanted to be special too. And it was like, how can I be
mm.
special? She's special. And it's such a silly thing. Obviously, my sister would have traded places with me instantly. She didn't want to be in there. But from the outside, she's getting all this attention, and all these important people are
Mm.
looking. And so there was this imprint of the drive to be special. And part of that then is sort of an a similar concept with specialness is greatness. You know,
Yep.
how do you stand out? How do you? So I was just really driven by that from an early age, and thinking about it and looking out at other people and trying to figure out what I could do. And so if I draw a through line from that moment to what the podcast is about, or even my brand name, Super Good, which I've had longer than the podcast, what's better than good? It's greatness, right? So it's like super good. And the podcast is just people who I think are amazing or great at something, or in a lot of cases, multiple things. And the idea is, can I go into that, whatever it is about them they're that makes them great and what they're great at, and pull out insights, because I think anyone who's great at anything has something to share with others. If they've achieved X or Y, they know things that we might not know if we haven't gone through that. And so that's the concept of the podcast. It's just like go to people that I think are amazing, brilliant in different areas, and try to pull that out and share with people, to show the path, and maybe partly to inspire people, but also so people can have real tools or steps they can take to make progress in a given area. And some of those concepts also transfer between, disciplines or industries as well. So that's kind of the idea. And I don't know why. I mean, it's just, again, it's something, because it's part of how I was shaped. I just continually am fascinated by it. So I just kind of go with whatever's authentic for myself, and follow my curiosity. And that happens to be something that really drives me.
I love that, man. I love that you did the work to for lack of a better word, manifest this and actually make it happen and bring it to reality by going through that Atlas program. That's awesome. What are you great at? What's something you're great at?
Oh man, maybe not talking about what I'm great at. No, I'm just kidding. But what am I great at? I think one thing that I'm really great at is there's two things that come to mind that people that are close to me tend to reflect a lot. One of them is my social identity, which took me a while to understand. A very common thing for people to get social anxiety, including myself. I was an extremely anxious person growing up and through my 20s into like my early 30s. And I did a lot of work to try to shift that. I can still be somewhat anxious and more high strung or high energy than some people, and that high energy can go into excitement or into anxiety. And I do a lot of work to keep it into excitement, but it can go
Mm,
into anxiety. And one of the ways that anyone I think can combat that in terms of the social anxiety is figuring out sort of what is your social identity? How do you show up at your best in a social situation? What role do you like to play? It doesn't mean you're stuck in that role, but it's a role you can rely on it's comfortable for you, that adds value, makes you feel good. And for me, one is being an amplifier. So if I go
mm,
into a space and there's a interaction going on or an event, a gathering, one of the things I'm really good at is taking whatever the energy state of the room is, of the group is, and amplifying it, taking it up a level. And I can sometimes course correct the energy in a room, although that's not necessarily my greatest superpower, but I am such an amplifier. Like people feel like there's a moreness when I'm around. Oh, it's like we're having a good time, but when Corey's around, it's even more fun. So this sort of like social amplifier role well, that's why my DJ name is Hype Man. It's just because
yeah.
that's just my natural state is to take things that I'm excited about or a moment and just take it to the 10th degree, the nth degree. So that's one. And the other thing that I really work on a lot, well, I don't work on it. I mean, I guess I do, but it comes naturally to me. And I also make space and time or understand its importance is this concept that comes from all the way back to How to Win Friends and Influence People, which a lot of people
Mm,
have read, or if you haven't, you've probably at least heard about it. Really old book and seminar by Dale Carnegie. And one of the things that stood out to me from reading that is it's a superpower to be able to give genuine appreciations to people. And so it has to be genuine, it has to be things you really actually appreciate or notice, and then reflect that back. And so I tend to have this skill of specificity and matching my observational eye to the specificity of language to give people genuine appreciations about
mm,
something they're doing or traits about them. So my friend Angelica, who Angel calls me the compliment king, and
yeah.
well, she's the compliment queen, so it takes one to know one. But that's something that I do. And then the other thing that goes with that, coach a lot on communication skills and delivery, like presentation skills and executive presence. I just love the study of how you can actually learn the physical, technical skills of how to move your face and your mouth and your body to change how air moves through your vocal cords, how
Mm,
the rhythm of your body, and having a different effect on people when communicating. And that's obviously related to storytelling and it's related to influencing. But I really love I love that study. And I think as someone who's delivering, that's something that I enjoy about myself, being able to play in that space.
that's awesome. What's the name of that study? Is
You could
is
call
that
it either presentation skills, right? You could
yeah,
call it executive presence. You could call it just verbal delivery, right?
nice.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so cool. I want to bring it back to what you was there a moment in the Atlas training that you had that insight, or was it just the whole experience of it all, or both? Like, was there an exercise that you went through that gave you that insight and awareness? I'm going to shut this window too while you're talking. It's
Yeah,
really
no
noisy.
worries.
There we go.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for a lot of people that I come in contact with, including those that I coach, uh, it does go back to your childhood. Life tends to
Yep.
go back there's a lot of who
Me
we are,
too.
right? And it's like I get sick of it myself. Like I don't even want it to always have to go there for myself or even with my clients. And it's like, well, it'd be tempting to just skip over this because it's not necessarily always the most fun to talk about your mom, talk about your dad, talk about your upbringing. But there's just so much there that shapes who we are now. And we can evolve our relationship with what happened then, but it's so relevant. And so it's sort of, you have to, kind of hold your nose sometimes and dive back into your childhood anyway. And so in Atlas, at some point, they do a childhood regression and they're taking you back into your childhood moment. And for me, the moment I've done a fair amount of personal development work, I started doing the personal development work before I started coaching. And then as I started becoming a coach, I even put the gas pedal down harder because I'm like, if I'm going to coach people, I have to be willing to go first. If I'm going to ask people to
Mm-hmm.
change or to become them best selves, well, I need to put in the work on myself. Who's going to listen to or trust someone who's not walking the walk? And so I've done a lot of that. And so I was in this exercise where we were going back to childhood regression, and kind of the prompt was leading me back to the same place. And the same place that's come up again and again is I was 3 years old. My mom was in the hospital with my sister. They were in the hospital for an extended period of time because my sister had these health issues. So my mom didn't immediately come home, right? So I was staying with my grandparents, and then eventually my dad came home and I was back with my dad at our house. But my mom still wasn't home and my sister wasn't home, and I hadn't met her yet and I hadn't been to the hospital. And so she pulls up in our minivan into the garage, and I still remember it. And I open the sort of door from the house to the garage, and my sister shows up and I meet her for the first time. And it was this very intense experience. And even in doing that, I could see she was a little different. She looked more different then because one of the symptoms is like an elongated tongue. But I just was like, oh, I could tell. And I known that something was different because they told me a little bit, and then I could see her. And I remember having this kind of really potent moment of like, oh, she's different than me. I'm different than her in some kind of a way. And that was a very potent moment. And then there were other moments kind of close to that around relating to that difference in some ways in good, and in a lot of ways in terms of like not understanding how to process it very well. And so anyway, I'm going back to this moment and I'm thinking in my head, all right, well, I've been here before. I've mined a lot from this. I've kind of milked it for what it's worth. I don't really know if there's going to be anything here for me. And one of my other themes from Atlas was working on my superiority complex or my arrogance. And so I kind of came into Atlas. I've done a lot of these courses. I'm judging the facilitator, I'm judging the container. And one of the things I noticed was, wow, okay, I have this arrogance or superiority that gets in the way between me and my growth, or me and my learning, or me and
Mm-hmm.
connection, or me and presence, right? So there's a lot of separation that can come when you're in superiority, judgment, arrogance. So I'm in this exercise. I said, well, here we go again with a little bit of that superiority, arrogance coming up. Let's drop that and just try to participate, just not try, just participate in the exercise and see what I can get this time. And so, right when I did that and went into it, there was this, I started at that moment where she came up from the hospital. And then my mind kind of flashed forward to these moments where kids would tease her or tease me about her. And I would get in a lot of fistfights as a kid. And
Mm-hmm.
just really, there was a real protective energy. I also had my own issue with my sister in terms of like bullying her. We've had our own clearings on that, but outside the family, you can't say anything about my family. Like that's immediately going to go to fighting. And I wasn't from like a rough area. So it wasn't like if I got in a fight, there might be some weapons being, this is like kids fighting in the suburbs. It's not anything too crazy, but it was very intense. Anytime anyone who's ever gotten in some sort of an altercation or fight knows how intense it is on your nervous system. And so I would do that, but it would leave quite a mark on me. And so instead of always having to fight, I realized, oh, the adaptation was if I could just hide people from seeing my family. And so the word that came very clearly to me was at the time I what I'd heard or what I got from people teasing my sister or teasing our family was that we're a freak show. Whether we are or not, that was like the phrase that came into my head. And I never really thought about that, but it was like, oh, freak show. It was such a potent, once that phrase came in, it like unlocked something. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I internalized that my family was a freak show. And so I lived as if that was true. And then I want to do whatever I can to protect people from seeing the freak show so they wouldn't comment on it and I wouldn't have to then defend and fight. So fast forward, my brain then flashes forward. Oh, well, I'm my family now in a way, right? So my intimate space, my family relationship is actually how I view myself. And so then I, without realizing subconsciously, was viewing myself as a freak show and my life as a freak show. And so what are you going to do if you see yourself and your life as a freak show? Is you're going to hide it, just like I did with my family. So I didn't want anyone on a subconscious level to know anything about my life or my work or sharing myself. And once I saw that connection all the way to how it's showing up right now, it was like a thorn being pulled out of my soul, or maybe another metaphor. It was like this huge release because then I could actually see it. It had gone all the way from the deep subconscious to the light of my conscious awareness. And once that sort of sunlight disinfectant gets on it, a lot of things are possible. So that was that one childhood regression exercise that all came out in one, and that release came out pretty all complete. Now I still had to go and make the podcast, record the episodes, and put it out there. And of course, some of that energy would come up each time I was about to put something out there or record. But I was able to go, oh, that's the same fear that I connected to in that exercise. Okay, that's all that is. And you're able to shrink it and just put it to the side and move forward anyway. So yeah, that's where it started.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
isn't that wild how I was talking to Josephine about this the other day, just the invisible beliefs everybody has that you don't realize. And like you look at them from the outside of like, oh, that person's got it all together. But then you talk to them or you realize something, and me too, right? I'm not saying it's both ways, right? It's like, but like they have this self-doubt where like, really, you have self-doubt? I'm like, damn, that's crazy. Like you seem like you got all your shit going, right? But I'm saying it just because it's just a beautiful thing, the human experience, all the vulnerabilities and pains and things that we all go through. So thank you for sharing that though with everybody, Cory.
Well, and I think just quickly on that, with the Super Good podcast, the concept is people who have outstanding results in an area likely have really good beliefs
Yeah.
and mindsets, like their perspective and their beliefs, and then their actions and outcomes in that area are probably pretty fucking phenomenal if they're getting there. Now, that same person, if you look at their totality of themselves as a human being, likely have areas where they're not in performing at a level of greatness. And in that area, they likely have some sort of hidden belief or mindset or perspective that's holding them back. And so I've never met anyone that has every area of their life
Mm-hmm.
at 100 out of 100 compared to maybe someone who's a little farther along in that one area. Now, there are some people that have done so much work and they're really outliers where a lot of their life is really working and they're doing pretty damn good in every category. And that's amazing. Good for them. They probably put in a ton of work to become that person. We want to celebrate and learn from those folks. But even those people, every single person has their edge. And it's like what Osho says, like, if you got to the end of the game of growth and human development and this life and what we're here to do and learn and grow and experience, wouldn't that be so embarrassing if you got to the end and it was over and there was no more for you? So it's kind of great that we always have at least somewhere we can be growing and working. And I think that's true for everyone.
Yeah. And also on the flip side, I would say people that have to go through those painful experiences, that also drives them to be great at a lot of things too, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of that story you had as a kid growing up about your family and yourself drove you to be such a magnetic, charismatic, fun, cool person today. And probably a big reason you wanted to start the podcast as well, right? So the inverse of that
Yeah.
too, sometimes when we have these, I had a lot of, like everybody else, right? I had self-doubt growing up and was made fun of in school and thought I was like this way, that way. But that drove a lot of me to like want to connect more with people, right? Want to build more relationships, want to be more loving with people. So
Yeah, we had 4 kids in my family, and you had to be loud and funny to get the attention. And
mm,
when I was in, elementary, middle, high school, even college, that desire to have attention and for people to like me or pay attention to me was so strong. It definitely drove me to experiment with like, how do I do it? I think the version of me then was quite annoying and insecure and had this sort of like bottomless pit of hunger for that. But luckily, after then putting a bunch of work in on myself, some of those same elements that I put so much effort that were so important to me around how to communicate or be funny, once I was able to take away sort of the shadow that was tied in with them, what was left was a lot of good stuff that I can still use now. So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for that time. But man, that if you were able to, if we in this conversation, if we were able to pause this conversation and go in a time machine together during the podcast and have the audience and you look and watch it like a montage of these moments of me, it would just make me cringe so deeply inside myself to see just how try hard I was and how maybe ineffective I was at being, charming and cool. I mean, I had some of those elements, but they were not put together very artfully. That's for sure.
Got it. Yep. I'm curious. Then I'm going to ask you, I'm going to pivot the conversation to something else. But what's the new belief or story you have about yourself and your family now?
Ooh, I don't know if I've articulated it before. I think it's something like, hey, you're good enough. There's like this enoughness that tends to be a salve to me. I mean, abundance is also a cool concept, but also I really enjoy enoughness. Like you're enough, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Give what you have. And to me, it's really like trust yourself and trust the universe more deeply. And, in Atlas, they were saying, one of the instructors was like, you're always trying to be 2 steps ahead of everything. You're trying to control situations by thinking ahead and being ahead of the moment. Stop trying to be ahead of the moment. Just be
Mm,
here. And so, what I try to bring as a mantra, or it's a belief as well, is that there's a power in presence. That if I can
yeah.
just be present and be here and be who I am, then that will be enough. That goes back to the enough. So there's an abundance. It'll just
Mm,
let flow what comes out and trust that and trust the work you've put in. And also, if your intention is good and you're willing to take action in alignment with that, and then learn from those mistakes when your actions don't match your intention, which still happens all the time. I have a lot of great intentions and my impact is not great. And so, but if I'm willing to learn from that, then I can live with the consequences or the results of that. And so
mm.
that's sort of making peace with what will come in this moment. And it may not be flawless, but it's perfect for now. Those are some of the ways I try to relate.
I love that. Yep. So you're doing a lot of things, Cory. You coach, you are the hype man for your lovely partner, and you're a DJ too, man. When you DJ, I'm like, damn, Cory's throwing it down. So I love hearing you on on DJing too. And then also you're building out a drone project as well, right?
That's something we're exploring. I don't know if it's worth going too far into it in this.
Okay.
Maybe when I come back on, and if that's moving forward, it'd be worth getting into. I
Yeah.
will say, yeah, like listen, I've coached for about 10 years. Love it. I think I'll one of the reasons I got into coaching was I thought about what would I want to do until I'm quite old? Like what role would I be interested in playing? Even as I changed so much. And I was like, I think I'll always be interested in being a teacher, a coach, a mentor. And what that
Mhm.
really means for me is just helping others live a life of their dreams, right? Reach their potential, live their best life. That's something I don't think I'll ever get tired of. Now, how I engage in that, when I first started coaching, I was maybe just so gung ho about diving in and really getting pushy and challenging folks. And maybe now I'm in a place where I look for the raised hands more, or I want
Mm.
people that want to come to me more. And then I'm okay, if you're really ready for it, let's go, let's get into it. And I'll give you everything that I have. I don't have the same need to prove to myself that it's possible. It's more like when it's the right time and the right person, I'm really ready to step forward and give whatever I can. And so again, I think I'll keep changing with that, but that coaching, mentorship, teaching archetype, I think that's something that investing in that is something I want to have into my older years in whatever form it comes out. With the music side of things, it's similar. Music has been one of the most important things in my life since I was very little. We had a very musical family. My parents bonded as a couple over music. My dad and my mom met, they were dating. I don't think they had any intention necessarily of being married. My dad was maybe more ready to settle down than my mom. My mom was a bit younger, and they had a oops surprise, we're pregnant, and kind of that shotgun
Are,
marriage. And
are you the
so
oldest? Who's the
I'm
oldest?
the second oldest. My brother
Okay.
Kyle is the oldest, and so they kind of had two weddings. One before he was born, I think one that was a little more planned after he was born. But one of the things they really bonded over, even as maybe like them figuring out how to make this match work that maybe they weren't so sure about, was music. And so we
Mm,
had a big record collection in my house. We had good speakers, and we would listen to music a lot. And my brother's a musician now with his wife, and it's always been something that even when I was like so depressed or so anxious, so alone, didn't feel like life was working very well, I always had a refuge in music. That's like where I'd spend a lot of time. But I also didn't had a lack of self-belief up until, pretty recently, that, and it got better and better, but it was still there and it was used to be very intense. So I remember my buddy used to DJ in college, and he had turntables, so he had to beat match by ear. And I remember trying it a couple times, and because I didn't really believe in myself, I just got so frustrated and quit and didn't persevere and get over the hump of learning how to do it.
mm,
Now learning to DJ is very easy, but at the time it was much harder. And so I just never really saw myself as being someone that could play music in any form, even though I loved it. And when I met my wife, her only dream, as an artist, she produces, she sings, she writes songs, and she DJs. And she's amazing. She's been DJing for 15 years, been making music for about 10 years. And her only dream, her main dream, is just to make it in the music industry. And so a big shift for me was, okay, what can I learn about this industry? How can I support her? And, in meeting her, she was like, I can teach you to DJ. You're going to DJ. And I was like, no, 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 I don't think I can. And she's like, yeah, you can. And so she is such a good teacher. And she made it, the first time she taught me to DJ, she just made it like a fun party environment. It's just the two of us. She set up the lights and we were vibing. We kind of dressed up. And then she just was like, started DJing and had me join her and just kind of had me press some buttons and get into it. And she made it really, really fun. And so for me, learning to DJ or play music was this aha moment. Oh, okay, cool. I can keep
mm,
evolving my relationship to music because I love music. I'm always listening to music, but then I would go out and dedicated a lot of my time to learning the dance music world, but more from a going to events and learning a lot about the industry from that side. And now on the flip side, I'm still a newer DJ, and I have a lot of respect for the craft. People that are masterful DJs, I have a lot of friends that are. There's a difference between people who DJ and masters, right? And I really love DJing with my wife and maybe some other friends that are masters because I get to kind of skip ahead in terms of the impact I can have on a dance floor and how good it can go because of how great they are. And then I can bring my element of hyping up the crowd and song selection. And, I can do some of the mixing and they can do the rest. And so I do have this passion for the whole. I think dance is one of the last collective experiences that we have where we can go out together and have a unified experience of the DJ is picking the frequency that the environment is riding on, and then we all go out together and we're all in one experience and one crowd. And I just have a lot of respect for that. So on the production side, learning how to throw great parties. I've always thrown great friend parties. I'm like from an experience design perspective. Yeah, I'm the one that throws friends' birthday parties, or people ask me to design and run a party, and I've done that privately. But then learning how to do that for more of the public has been something in the last couple of years that's been very intriguing because it's really hard.
mm.
It's really hard to do. One, from a getting all the components right to make a public event pop off is hard, but it's even harder to do it and make money. It's much easier to do it if you're willing to lose money. And a lot of people in the event space they do it because they're already wealthy and they want to throw an event. And it's much easier to throw a really cool public event if you're willing to just lose a bunch of money. But to do it and make money, much harder. So it's this really interesting human experience design puzzle that also has the financial limitations and components to it. And the music industry has gotten really, really bad in terms of the cost to throw events. So anyway, it's just a very challenging puzzle, and that's sort of drawn me in to learn how to do that. And for me, I really love mixing the human experience with the audio visual technology side, and how do you use those components to elevate the human experience. And we're kind of getting to this phase where technology is evolving and it's getting more advanced, and there's some things you can do that you weren't able to do before, including drones that people have seen, or massive screens with custom visuals. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that's being done that has me inspired.
That's cool. What lights you up about that? Throwing great parties on a personal level and also throwing great musical experiences for people. What lights you up about that?
I've just always loved, I just love overdosing on friendship and connection. I was
Yeah.
the kid that just loved, my original Coachella was sleepovers with kids when I was younger, like that was my favorite thing, was doing sleepovers, and I would be so excited by them and so kind of high on friendship and connection that, I never wanted to go to sleep. And I always had a pretty loud voice. So I was often the kid that wouldn't be invited back because the parents were like, you can have another sleepover, but don't invite that kid. He's too loud. He kept us up. But yeah, I remember when we would do like school dances or friends' birthday parties, just the amount of energy in a space when people would gather in groups and there would be activities and interactions happening. And obviously, when we kind of went through puberty and you started getting into girls, and there's that element of the dynamic of like who likes who, but there's usually often music playing, and then the dancing is a big part. And I've always loved dancing. So just that mix between like the gatherings, I just think there's something going all the way back that's always lit me up, and I've always
Mm.
been a student of. I was like, okay, sometimes this goes really well and it's really fun, and other times this wasn't fun. And I'm like, well, why sometimes are these events and
Huh.
parties so like literally the most fun thing that I can imagine, and then other times they suck? What's going on? And so just my brain, when I see that puzzle, starts working on it, and I was just drawn into that. So I've always been a student of that. And when I was able to throw parties myself, I just started throwing them and then learning from them and trying to make them better and better and better.
That's cool. What are some things you noticed that made them suck, and what are some things you noticed that made them great?
Well, it's a big difference between public and private, but I'll start with the private parties because that's where I spent many more years of doing those.
I've been to your private parties. They're a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
remember well, not now relatively recent at David Block's place. I think it was your birthday and maybe Genevieve's, or like two other people's
Yeah.
birthday as well,
Yeah.
right?
There's me, David, Genevieve, Mark Patrick, Yelena, and Nanelle. Actually, we had like a all Virgos birthday party a couple years
Yeah.
in a row at Wildwood, the space in Topanga.
The
That is
best
no
part was
more.
when the best part was when the forest almost caught on fire on by the
Yeah.
pool.
Shh, we're not supposed to talk about
Oh
that.
my bad. I'll take that
No, no,
out.
it's
I'll edit
fine. They
that
don't live there anymore. They don't live anymore. It's fine now. Yeah. Well, there's also this book called Why We Gather. Is it called Why We Gather? I think it's called
Mm.
Why We Gather. And first understanding like, what is this party really about? What are your goals here? Like, why are we actually getting together? And that's always the first question, is like, why are we doing this? And the second piece that goes right with that then for me is curation of guest lists. Like, how big is this party? How wide is the guest list going? What kind of people do we want to invite? And so if you know why you're doing it and you do curation well, that's like you could have fun in just like an empty room if you have the right theme or intention and the right curation, for sure. But what comes shortly after that is I always think about experience sort of on a bell curve, right? Where the experience starts. Okay, here's when the experience starts, and it ramps up to some sort of an emotional peak or energetic peak, and then it comes down again. So this is the same as a narrative
Mm.
arc. And so when you
Yep.
design events on a narrative arc structure, you may start with like an early surprise. Like most movies now, if you notice, start with an action scene or something to draw you
Yeah.
in because of attention spans. You watch old movies and they can be so slow at the beginning and you can maybe just want to turn them off. And that's how they used to do it, and people's attention spans were different. And so now if you start with in media res is the name for it, you start with something that makes it pop and draws people in, and then you can kind of have this build up of rising action, is what they call it in the narrative arc. And then you can have the climax. And then as it starts coming down and it's falling action, you can have kind of one twist or one surprise where spikes one more time, and then
Hmm.
falling action into resolution. And that's the same arc you can do energetically with a party. And what you're tracking is the emotional experience of the people that are attending, right? And so you actually want to design so people can go through an emotional journey where they can maybe have that spike of excitement, and then their emotions can rise, and there's some sort of a peak that's memorable, and then there's able to resolve. And so if you actually just see, through the matrix code that that's what we're doing, and you actually just chart using that same kind of narrative arc structure. Okay, when does our event start? When does it end? When is the emotional peak? What are options for what would be that peak? What would help things build up? man, you can design things really simply, whether it's your wedding, whether it's a birthday party, whether it's just a dance party, that go beyond the normal. A lot of people just kind of set a location and a time and they have drinks and maybe there's music and they just like see what happens. There's none of
Yeah.
that intelligent design. And so if you go beyond that, you're going to be able to reach that kind of top 1% of party experiences pretty quickly because most people aren't doing that. And so that's a huge part of it, I think.
That's so cool, man. One of my invisible fears is having gatherings for myself, like birthday parties. I was always nervous. I never really had awesome birthday parties. Now as an adult, I've done dinners and stuff, right? But like there's a few different like limiting beliefs, for lack of a better word, right, that happened for me. One is I don't like all the attention. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I
Mhm.
do sometimes feel, but in some ways it is, right? I do like want to block out all the love because sometimes I feel like I didn't get a lot of love as a kid, or I didn't have a lot of
Mhm.
friends as a kid, even though I did. But again, it's that bullshit story I had about myself.
Yeah.
And then two, the fear of like throwing a party and like people not coming or like it not being fun. So that's cool to learn from you on how to do that. And I'm going to do better at that. I'm turning 40 in March. And then me and Josephina were planning our wedding too. So we got to have an awesome wedding as well. And this next decade of my life, I want to do better. That's one of my focuses, right? To do better on the social friends front, like gatherings and things like that.
I think that's a pretty common fear. I've worked with a lot of people that have that fear and or those set of fears. And the first one of not wanting the attention, I think the most important thing to remember is people are looking for an excuse to overcome their circumstances or their resistances to showing up somewhere and giving energy. And so a
Mm-hmm.
birthday or some sort of an anniversary, whatever this special event is, it's giving people a reason for the season, a reason to show up, a focusing element to, everyone's busy, they got stuff going on, but I love Naeem, so I'll go. And because of that, then you have the opportunity for this energetic field in the group to be raised pretty high. And so it's I think there's an importance to acknowledging the excuse you're giving people to come together. And the second piece is one of the ways to look at your birthday. I think this is like a European concept, or I've heard it. I mean, maybe it's stupid and no one, it's just from the ether and it's not connected. But I heard this about some European countries where on your birthday, you you give the gift, you pay for the dinner, you give your friends the thing. And I think that's such a much more liberating concept that like my birthday, I'm asking you to come show up, but my job is actually to bring you all together so you get to all be together and have this experience. So I'm going to design it
Yeah.
so it's really for you. And it's not that I'm going to block your love because I know that you need to give that to feel complete with the experience. So I'm going to receive, but really I'm receiving and I'm going to let it move through me just to give it right back. And I think that helps. I can really help people that are kind of resistant to celebrating their birthday. And then for your wedding, let's just talk offline, and I'll help you guys design if you have any questions about that.
Yeah.
But I love that you're making the commitment. The number one thing that drives longevity and human fulfillment is community and relationships.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so parties or gatherings, and birthdays are a great one. Those are times where we actually do come together, and people have the really hard time. I mean, these stats too, and a lot of people out there might as well. But like as we get older, people tend to isolate more and more. They have less
Yeah.
friends. They spend less time with those friends, and the amount of new friends people are making go dwindle to almost nothing. And so, if we want to beat that trend or that like gravity or whatever we want to call that, we have to find a way to go beyond that and having intentional gatherings where we curate groups where we're like, hey, I want some of these people to meet each other. And then we spend some of our birthday facilitating those connections and try to spark some new friendships or relationships. We are really doing something important, I think, by doing that. And so I think your commitment in this next decade is going to be a really fruitful one, not just for yourself, but for everyone that touches you from a community perspective.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love this, the flip, doing it for your friends. And I've thought of that before. So, but I love that reframe. And I also love the thoughtfulness that could go into it strategically to like curate this amazing experience. Like when I do events for business, it's like you put a lot of thought into it, but I never thought of it like, oh yeah, put a lot of thought into like this cool gathering you're putting for whatever personal event that's happening as well.
Yeah, and if you're afraid people aren't going to show up, just sell it harder. Make a funnier theme. Make the invite more hilarious and more creative. Reach out to people with voice notes. Like, if you're afraid no one's going to show up, take all that fear energy and put it into marketing and selling your party.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Like, at least you can make it fun by being playful with it and kind of having that wink in that makes people want to come, even if there's part of them is like, ah, it's another birthday or another thing. If you just put in that little extra effort, be like, okay, I'll come. Right. And
Yep.
so I just recommend people like just be more creative and more playful and sell it and market it harder. Take all that fear energy and put it there.
Yeah. I love that. You know, what's so funny as you're talking about that, I'm like, I'm a public speaker and I was like, oh my God, having parties is like my fear of public. I'm not scared of public speaking.
Right.
I'm really good at that. I used to
Yeah.
in the beginning, right? But I was like, oh, interesting. Like, that's like a fear of mine to like really open it up and like intentionally try to put on like a big, awesome, fun event. That'll be a fun transformational goal for me.
Well, it's still an attention fear, right? Like when you're public speaking, the real fear is that you're getting attention from your audience, and
Yeah.
then that might not go well. They're going to judge you. You're going to fail publicly, right? So it's having that attention on you is where the fear comes in. Yours is not about public speaking. You've mastered that, right? And that is most people's number one fear is speaking in public, right?
Yep.
But yours is still an attention fear. And I don't, it's interesting. We don't have to dive into it on this podcast, but it's like something about being seen and being celebrated and having all that attention on you, right? Makes you uncomfortable. Probably goes back, like we said, unfortunately, to our childhoods, right? In
Yeah.
your case, your childhood, but it's still an attention related fear. So that's so interesting.
Yep. No, absolutely, man. No, let's do it. Let's talk about me. No, I'm
Yeah.
joking.
I'm in. Let's go. Let's
Well,
go.
when we do my podcast, when I'm on your podcast, we could do it. That'll be fun.
Deal.
That's sweet, man. I love that. What um I was gonna ask you this before too. What kind of music did your family listen to growing up in your house? All kinds?
A lot of rock of different types. We had my mom's favorite band was AC/DC, which is hilarious. She was kind of she dated before my dad, she dated a guy with a motorcycle and had a leather jacket and listened to AC/DC. But so we'd play a little bit of that, but we'd also play uh, things like the Grateful Dead while we were cleaning the house on the weekends, Rolling Stones. We were definitely not a Beatles house. What I've learned since then is there's kind of like Beatles families and Rolling Stones families. Some listen to both, obviously. I mean, they're huge bands, but I didn't really listen. I did not have like a relationship to like the Beatles music until much later. Whereas a lot of my friends grew up and they listened to all the Beatles albums. They have a very deep connection. My connection was to things like the Rolling Stones. My mom and dad both love Fleetwood Mac.
Mm-hmm. They're great.
So yeah, that era was really mostly what we listened to. So that's like 60s, 70s, 80s. And then obviously in the 90s, we would like buy CDs and cassettes, and my brother and I got into our own music. Rap music came out, but like my
Yeah.
parents' vinyl collection is sort of that era of rock
That's
and
so
pop
cool.
rock. Yeah.
That's all, dude. We listened to no music in my house growing up.
Really?
Yeah, my parents didn't. My mom probably listened to like some classical stuff just randomly on the
Yeah.
radio, but like no, that's so wild. That's cool.
Do you still have that where you don't listen to music as much or it doesn't resonate with you as much because you just didn't have it growing up? Or do you like thirst for it more because of the deprivation when you were growing up?
I definitely thirsted for it more because of the deprivations, right? So I'd go out and like want to have fun more.
Yeah.
Um, but now I love music. I've always loved
Yeah.
music. So, but yeah, it just wasn't a thing growing up in my family. Yeah.
Sometimes when we have to find our own way with something that we deeply desire, it creates more connection and personalization to it, right? Almost like, no, I love music and I'm going to find my way to listen to it, even though my family isn't showing it to me. It can kind of drive that commitment. So that's cool. It's cool that you found your way.
Yep. Absolutely. What's it like when you coast or for lack of I'm thinking of the right words, but when you're on the set with Lena or just other epic DJs and you get to ride the wave with them, what's that like for you and
I mean,
contribute as well?
it's one of the best feelings in the world. The DJing is one of those things that can go so poorly. Like you can have the worst DJ gig ever. You can be playing to an empty room or a room of people on their phones or a very sparse room. And it can feel so bad because you're kind of playing something and there's no crowd reaction. There's no vibe happening. It's a very conversational art form where your job, at least on the DJ side, not the producer side, but just on the DJ side, right? Your job is to get people dancing and having a good time. So there's a conversation between like what's in your mind, what you want to play, and what the dance floor is reacting to. And
Mm,
they're sort of the dance floor is really in charge, and but you're still taking a leadership role because you're trying things. You're like, "Huh, what about this?" And they're like, "Yeah." Okay, what about this? And they're like, "Yeah." And you're like, "Okay, I'll give
ah,
you a little more of that. Is that you like that? Okay." So you are sort of guiding, but they're really in charge. And when it works, you're having this really powerful conversation where you're putting something out to them and they're receiving it and then they're feeding back energy to you. And that can just keep ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And so when it works well, you have this experience of like the only way it can be described is an ecstatic experience, right? It's like a
mhm.
peak ecstatic experience. And that's what, from a DJing standpoint, that's what I live for personally. And that's kind of why I named myself Hype Man, partly because people would reflect to me, oh my God, you're the best hype man for your wife, or you're the best hype man when you go dance, or you're the best hype man for things that you love in this world. And what I realized was for me, I tend to enjoy DJing when the situation is ready to like go to that next level. It's kind of like that social amplifier I talked about. It's kind of my
Yep.
personality. I like to kind of DJ when I can kick in the door like the Kool-Aid man, and oh yeah, and just like take it to the next level. And so when I'm able to do that, it feels like an important role because I'm helping people go to not just having a good time, but having like an ecstatic time where people are like enraptured and dance and losing their minds. And obviously it doesn't always get there. Now, the other piece is when I get to do that with my wife. I have never dated
Mm.
someone where I've had a creative outlet together like that because when we DJ together, our DJ back-to-back name is Nasty Business, which is just hilarious. Her artist name is often Lala, but when we DJ together, it's Nasty Business. I'm nasty and she's business. And that's just, it could go either way. But and the reason is because we like to play that music that like makes your face, turn up, kind of like make that this face. We're like, oh, that's nasty. But we design the sets together. So we like crate dig the music separately, and then we kind of put it together, and then we organize playlists based on what we think for the setting. So sometimes we'll even, design a flow for the set. A lot of times we'll just make a playlist, but sometimes we'll even design like some of the beginning of the set or the middle of the set or even the whole set, depends on the situation. And then we're DJing, and while we're DJing, we're reading the crowd together and having conversations up there about what needs to be adapted from our plan or where to take the set. And then we're playing music, and one of us might pick or the other might pick it, and then we do something. And if like one mix works really well, we mix this track into that track. Ooh, that mix was really good. We're able to like share that excitement and joy. And then if the crowd is really going off, we're able to take in that energy together and have this shared experience and shared memory. And then on the backside of it, we get to digest and talk about that gig or that set together. So it's so satisfying because it's just another way to build and create together. And love energy, sexual energy is creative energy. And so for us, it's a quite romantic experience to
Mm.
DJ together. And yeah, it's just, I've met a few other couples that DJ together, and we've talked about it's just like a blissful, kind of unbelievably wonderful experience. Kind of
Yeah.
everyone always relates to like, oh, it's the next best feeling other than sex or whatever, right? Like, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like DJing is on that list of like at that top tier of experiences you can have in life. And particularly with another human being, I would say DJing when it works well together and you're going back to
Yeah.
back can be one of the kind of top experiences that I've ever experienced in life.
That's amazing, man. That must be, yeah, I can't imagine. But yeah, just sound, right? And just being in that frequency and that vibration, you're just in a different universe. That must be so great to do that together.
Well, they talk about how art is adorning space and then music is adornment of time. So it's
Mm,
like the actual song is made to, a beat or a track. And so what the music is doing, moment to moment to moment is sort of adorning time in this art form. And so when you're DJing and you're hitting the right notes at the right time, it's a very present experience. Like it's the song and what it's doing right now to the dance floor, and then right
Yeah.
now, and then right now. So it slams you into this deep presence, but it's like an amplified richness of experience. Like if anyone's ever heard of flow state, right? The elements of flow state are stir, right? Selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness, right? And so the richness side is that you're getting more experience depth per moment than normal when you're in flow state.
Mm.
And so when you're DJing well, or when it's going well, you're definitely in flow state. And that's what the addictive side is. It's what makes you come back again and again. But you get to have this like richness of experience. And then if you're doing it with your partner, you get a shared richness of that experience. So yeah, it's pretty special. As you
Wow.
can
That's
tell, as I
awesome.
wax poetic about it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Um, all right. Well, to wrap it up, man, well, first, actually, people can go listen to the Super Good podcast, Apple, Spotify, all the places, I'm sure,
YouTube
right?
as well. Yeah, you can get it audio only, but it's also a video podcast. So you can get it on YouTube and on Spotify in video form. And then obviously on Apple Podcasts, it's there. It's the RSS feed. So if you use a different podcast kind of app, it'll push to that as well.
Nice, cool. What was a cool lesson or moment so far that you've had interviewing your guests? I'm sure there was many.
What's been cool is at the beginning of the podcast, I've been able to mine the relationships in my life for people
Yeah.
that I'm already friends with that I think are amazing, that I genuinely think are world class and great. And so I've been able to, in doing interviews with them, hear stories or learn things about them that I've never heard before. One example is my friend, Dr. John Konevsky, who that episode's actually going to come out in a couple weeks. He's a surgeon, and I got to hear all about his medical school journey and just what he went through. And an example was him telling me about how when he was in his residency in the hospital, because he did his residency in Canada, he went to school for medical school in Canada, and they got that state goes all the way to the polar north because it's like a vertical state in Canada. So they would get polar bear attacks sent down to his hospital. And so he's telling me about treating polar bear attacks. And I just thought that was hilarious. The other one
Yeah.
would be my friend, Nicholas Patrica, who is the singer, songwriter, creative force behind Walk the Moon. It was funny because I'd heard about him before I really met him. Oh, he's Nick from Walk the Moon. I didn't really know the band that well, but I knew a couple of the songs. And I was kind of, when I first met him, nervous about would he actually like me? And I was trying not to be weird because he's kind of famous. Can I be normal around him? And so I remember just kind of having this anxiety about like, am I gonna screw this up and not be friends with him? That was quite a few years ago. But then fast forward, and he's on my podcast, and I'm interviewing
Yeah.
about his artistic journey and his new music that's going to come out. And that was kind of a full circle moment for me of, oh yeah, there's this guy who I knew of who was kind of famous out there in the world. And then I was like, oh, are we even going to be able to be friends? And then we became like really deep, intimate friends, like best friends. But then I'm now interviewing him more in a public way, on so it's almost like reverse. So that was a cool
Yeah.
moment as well. Yeah.
That's really cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. I love the work you're up to, man. It was fun dropping in with you here on my podcast.
Thanks
And
for having me.
absolutely, dude. What's your and likewise too, like you said, right? You get to learn cool things about your friends you didn't know. I got to learn a lot of cool things about you that I didn't know. So that was fun to pull out of you and hear about. So thanks.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for having
What
me.
absolutely. What's your final departing message or thoughts for the audience?
Uh, I think the thing that's there, if I just trust the presence, like I was mentioning earlier, if I could just stay with that, I've had this more recent appreciation for having periods of hopelessness or discouragement in my life.
Mm,
And very recently, in the last few years, I felt really lost and I felt really drained and disheartened about what I was doing and where I was going, and if anything ever good was going to happen again in my life or in my career.
Mm,
And it felt like everything was getting worse and nothing was getting better. And things have been going really well before that. And I had to fall back on a lot of the trainings or teachings that I was coaching other people on during that period for myself. And I think my departing message is, if your life has been going really well, uh, in the past, but it's not going so well now, or if it is going well now and in the future, there's a period where it's not going so well, just keep fighting. Just keep fighting for the vision that inspires you. And it's much easier to have a vision that inspires you than just trying to get by. And
mm,
when you're not doing well, having an inspiring vision feels like a stretch and such an extreme thing. And it's like not possible. It's never going to happen. But I would just say that if you're feeling down and life is kind of feels like it's against you, that's temporary. And if you just keep reconnecting to what do I want in my life and what is my vision and what would inspire me and what would be a fuck yes, and then you just take steps in that direction, even if those steps feel like you're never going to get to the destination and they're not going to add up to enough distance to cover the ground. It is truly awe-inspiring and humbling how much life can change and how quickly it can change, both
mm,
for the good and for the bad. And so I just say, keep fighting in the direction of your dreams. And remember that it's not just you. There's a much bigger field operating that can give things to you easier and better than you can imagine. And your job is just to hold the vision of what you want and walk in the direction of it and do what you can in any moment. And so it's never they always say like the best time to have done that thing that's good for you was 10 years ago, and the next best time is right now. And so just remember, try to drop any of the judgment, any of the hopelessness, and just get into action right now. So that'd be my message.
boom.
Boom.
Amazing. There you go. Mic drop. We're done.
We're done. Elfine.